All right, let me ask you something. On paper, everything looks perfect. You're successful, you're earning well, you've built a life that most people aspire to. But when it comes to relationships, to real emotional connection, to intimacy, something feels off. Maybe you find it hard to connect deeply. Maybe relationships don't last. Maybe you feel distant, even when you're with someone. Or maybe everything looks fine on the outside, but inside, it feels empty. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, because there's a pattern that's becoming more and more common today. High earning, high performing men struggling with intimacy. And today, we're going to break down exactly why this happens, and more importantly, how to fix it. First, we need to understand something fundamental. The traits that make you successful in the modern world are often the same traits that make intimacy harder. Let me explain. To become a high earner, you usually develop discipline, focus, control, independence. You learn how to suppress distractions. You learn how to prioritize goals over emotions. You learn how to solve problems logically and efficiently. And in business or career, these traits are incredibly valuable. But in relationships, they can create distance. Because intimacy doesn't work on logic, it works on presence, it works on vulnerability, it works on emotional openness. And that's where the conflict begins. A lot of high performing men are used to being in control. You control your schedule, you control your environment, you control outcomes, but intimacy requires you to give up control, to be seen, to be emotionally exposed, to not always have the answers. And that can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. So, what happens? Instead of leaning into that discomfort, many men avoid it. They stay busy, they focus on work, they keep things surface level, not because they don't want connection, but because they've never learned how to operate in that space. Now let's talk about emotional bandwidth. Success often comes at a cost. Long hours, high pressure, constant decision making. By the end of the day, your mental energy is depleted. And intimacy requires energy. It requires attention. It requires presence. If your mind is still in work mode, it's very difficult to fully show up for another person. This is why many men feel disconnected, even in relationships. Physically present, but mentally elsewhere. And over time, that creates emotional distance. Another major factor is performance based identity. When you're successful, your identity often becomes tied to what you do, your income, your achievements, your status, and that creates a subtle dynamic in relationships. You feel valued for what you provide, not necessarily for who you are. So instead of being authentic, you keep performing, even in your personal life. But here's the problem: intimacy requires authenticity, not performance. If you're always on, always trying to be the strong one, always trying to maintain an image, there's no space for real connection, because real connection happens when the mask comes off. Now let's talk about vulnerability. This is one of the biggest barriers. Many men grow up with the belief that showing emotion is weakness, that you need to be tough, that you need to handle things on your own. And while that mindset can help you push through challenges, it can also block emotional connection, because vulnerability is the gateway to intimacy. It's how people feel close to you. It's how trust is built. It's how relationships deepen. But if you're not used to expressing emotions, it can feel unnatural. You might not even know what you're feeling, let alone how to communicate it. So instead, you default to what you know: logic, solutions, fixing problems. But here's something important to understand. In relationships, not everything needs to be fixed. Sometimes, it just needs to be felt. Another issue is delayed gratification. High earners are often wired to delay pleasure. You work now, enjoy later. You sacrifice now, win later. But relationships exist in the present. Connection happens now, not after the next milestone. not after the next promotion, not after things settle down. And if you keep postponing connection, you might wake up one day and realize you've built a successful life, but you don't feel connected in it. Now let's talk about how to fix this. Because the good news is, this is not permanent, it's a skill set. And like any skill, it can be learned. The first step is awareness. You need to recognize the patterns, notice when you're avoiding connection, notice when you're staying in your head instead of being present. The second step is creating space. You can't build intimacy if your entire life is consumed by work. You need intentional time, time where you are not distracted, time where you are fully present. The third step is emotional awareness. Start paying attention to what you feel, not just what you think, what you feel, even if it's subtle, even if it's uncomfortable. You don't need to have perfect words. You just need to start noticing. The fourth step is communication. And this doesn't mean long emotional speeches. It can be simple. I've been stressed lately. I feel a bit disconnected. I want to be more present. Small expressions create openings, and those openings create connection. The fifth step is learning to be present. Put the phone away, let go of distractions, be fully engaged in the moment, because presence is one of the most powerful forms of intimacy. The sixth step is letting go of constant control. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to lead every moment. You don't need to solve every problem. Sometimes just being there is enough. And finally, redefine success. Because real success is not just external, it's internal. It's how you feel about your life. It's the quality of your relationships. It's the depth of your connections. You can have all the money in the world, but if you feel disconnected, it won't feel fulfilling. So the goal is not to choose between success and intimacy. It's to integrate both, to build a life where you are not just achieving, but also connecting, where you are not just performing, but also being, where you are not just successful, but also fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, that's what truly matters. Take care of yourself, because you're worth it.